Every time I see this, I'm getting to see the full effect along with you all. The placements are beautiful. Well, welcome. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the White House. One of the things that I love to do, we're doing a press preview. And just to be simple, we open up the state dinner to the press so that they get to see what the inside of the tin is going to look like, what the feel of the dinner is going to be, and what the menu is going to taste like, and all of that good stuff. So that's something that we generally do with the state dinner. But over the years, as we've invited guests here, we also try to open up these press previews to students and young people so that you all get a sense of what actually happens at a state dinner, what goes on at that dinner, what's the purpose of it, what does it feel like. So we have decided, and we have made this a wonderful tradition, to invite you all here to the press preview to be a part of it. And that's what we're doing this afternoon. And we have three wonderful groups of young women who are with us today. We've got National Cathedral School students who are here. Where are you guys? Right here in DC. Hello. How are you guys? What years do we have here? Juniors and seniors. Excellent, excellent. And we also have the Elizabeth Seton High School students in Maryland. Where are you all? Over there. What years? 12. Going to college? Moving and grooving. You guys are all ready to college bound as well. Good, good. And then we have some very special guests from the United Kingdom. Our young ladies, 12 of them from the Elizabeth Garrett Anderson School. And these young ladies are right here with us. And they are 12 wonderful young people. I have developed a terrific relationship with the Elizabeth Garrett Anderson School over the years. When I did my very first visit to the UK a couple of years ago, I got to visit the school, and the students there were amazing. They did a wonderful program for me, and I was so touched and so moved and felt so connected to them that one of the things I wanted to do was just stay connected, and we have done that. And when we visited again last year, I took a group of them to Oxford to see one of the finest colleges in the country, to make sure that, like all of you young women here, that our girls in the UK were reaching for the greatest heights possible and seeing the inside of some of the most astounding institutions their country has to offer. And when I was there, I invited them back to the United States. And because of their wonderful teachers and sponsors and mentors, they selected 12 students who had to compete actually to attend this trip, write essays, and show their leadership skills. And these are the 12 young women who were selected, and they've been here for a few days. You've gotten to go to the State Department. We met yesterday with the mentees that I host here at the White House. We had a good little conversation. You guys did some community service with our mentees yesterday, and we're grateful at Martha's Table. So we're very proud of the investment that you're making while you're here. So we are just happy to have all of you here this afternoon, and we want you to relax, enjoy yourselves, because you're going to hear a bit about what a state visit, what we try to accomplish at a state visit. And you're going to hear from Brooke Anderson. She's the Chief of Staff for the National Security Staff, who's to my left, and she's going to talk a bit about what a state visit means, what we're trying to accomplish with this particular state visit. And she can answer anything. She's phenomenal. She's smart. She knows a little bit about everything. So she's gonna help you guys through that. And we also have one of my dear friends, Chris Comerford, who's the executive chef for the White House. So she is responsible for what we eat. She designs the menu, she works with her staff, and let me tell you, we have hundreds of guests coming tonight, and it is a complete production for them to put together this meal. And the White House is a big place, but the kitchen is really teeny. You wouldn't believe it. It's a little bitty kitchen, so they have to really man the engines to make it happen. But actually, because we're in a tent tonight, you probably have more space than you usually do when we have the dinner here. But Chris will talk about the menu. She'll talk about what they think about in pulling together an event like this. And again, you can ask her any questions as well. She is one of the first female executive White House chefs that the White House has ever had. And she cooks for our family. She does all the special occasions. She feeds the nation as they come through the White House, and she is very good at what she does. So we have two wonderful people here today who will lead you through a presentation. So you guys, as I always say to the young women who come, speak up, ask questions. It's only formal because we wanted you to see what it's going to feel like. But other than that, you guys enjoy yourselves, learn as much as you can. Don't be hesitant. And then to top it off, we're going to let you guys try some of the dessert that we're going to have. And you'll be the first, after me. I think me and Grandma and a couple of people, we've tasted the desserts, but you guys will be the first to taste the desserts tonight. So we are just excited to have you. We're very proud of all of you because all of you have shown a level of dedication to your school and your community, a level of leadership, and I'm sure that's why your school selected you to be here. We are very proud of you, and hopefully you'll be on the other end of some state dinner. Maybe you'll be doing what Brooke is doing or doing what Chris is doing, or maybe you'll be doing what I'm doing or what President Obama is doing, but you'll get a taste of what you might do when you get into these high posts. Because we expect very big things from all of you, all right? So I'm going to go because I have to go look at the tent. I'm going to see what's going on there, and I will hand it over to Brooke, who will take good care of you. It's great to see you all. Love you guys. Have fun. All right, take care. Good.
Good afternoon, everyone, and again, welcome to the White House. We are so grateful to the First Lady. She's the reason we're able to do events like this. She wants your generation to be able to share in moments like this and the great work our countries do together. My name is Brooke Anderson, and I'm the Chief of Staff of the National Security Staff here at the White House. The National Security Staff is the part of the White House that supports the President, the Vice President, and their national security advisors on the whole range of security and foreign policy issues, including today's visit of Prime Minister Cameron and Mrs. Cameron. On days like this, especially with state dinners, there's always a lot of attention about what happens in front of the cameras, how the two leaders interact with each other, who's coming to dinner, and what they're wearing. So I thought I'd just take a few minutes to give you a brief glimpse into some of the work behind the scenes, why this visit means so much to both our countries. As the First Lady said, the United States and United Kingdom have a long and very close relationship. But as you know, the relationship got off to a bit of a rocky start. A few American presidents have joked that it's always nice when British leaders come here to visit their former colonies. And American presidents often like to tease their British guests by reminding them that during the War of 1812, the British actually burned down the White House. But that was a long time ago. Of course, more recently, we've been each other's closest allies. Our men and women in uniform have fought side by side from World War I to Afghanistan. Our diplomats and development workers work together all over the world to support democracy, to help other nations lift their people from poverty. Our business people work together every day to sustain one of the largest economic relationships in the world. In fact, a lot of Americans, perhaps some of your parents or neighbors, work for British companies and vice versa. Our scientists and researchers collaborate to cure diseases and discover new treatments, and every year, tens of thousands of students your age or in college take the opportunity to study abroad. Americans in British schools, British and American schools, and I hope that's something you all will do as well. There really are few nations that do so much together and have so much in common, including our language. That said, a lot of people think that there's such a difference between English and American English that we're actually separated by a common language. But President Obama is determined to help bridge that divide, and this morning at the arrival ceremony out on the South Lawn, he even tried out some British slang. Those of you visiting from the UK will have to be the judge of how he did. Because of everything we do together and everything we share, Prime Minister Churchill famously called ours a special relationship, and that name stuck. When American presidents and British prime ministers get together, they discuss everything, every issue you can imagine across the world: international peace and security, global health and hunger, education. For their part, President Obama and Prime Minister Cameron have met and worked together on numerous occasions. But there's an interesting twist to this visit. Last year, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth hosted the President and the First Lady in London for what we call a state visit, which is a visit between heads of state. Here in the United States, the President is both the ceremonial head of state and the head of government. And in the United Kingdom, the Queen is the ceremonial head of state, and the Prime Minister is the head of government. So if the Queen were coming, it would be called a state visit. Since it's the Prime Minister, we call it an official visit. On the national security staff, we've been working on this visit for a very long time. We have an office that focuses specifically on European issues, and they've been working every detail, planning the issues to be discussed with their British counterparts, and that work has been going on for many months. That's because these visits are really an incredible opportunity to do important business, and we want to make the most of the time that the two leaders have together. In their meetings today, President Obama and Prime Minister Cameron coordinated a whole range of issues: the global economy, the demands for democracy in the Middle East and North Africa, preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. These are issues that are going to shape our world and your lives for decades to come. And so it's appropriate that you are part of this day. You are the generation that's going to carry this work on. So visits like this are significant, but there's still some room for fun. And in London last year, the Prime Minister and the President played some students about your age in table tennis, or as we Americans call it, ping pong. And, well, the President and the Prime Minister lost, badly. So last night, instead of playing a sport, they decided to go watch instead. And the President took the Prime Minister to Ohio for one of the first games of what we call March Madness, which is basketball. And the dinner this evening is going to be another chance for them, their teams, to, in a more informal setting, deepen their friendship and keep the bonds between our countries strong for future generations like yours. Helping bring countries and people closer together like this is one of the reasons I love public service. It's not something I always knew I wanted to do. And in fact, when I was your age, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. But I did look around the world, and there were things that I saw that I didn't like. There were injustices that I wanted to change. And I saw that, but I had no idea how I could personally make an impact. And then in college, I was given an incredible opportunity, and I had an internship at the United Nations. And there I saw a place where countries could come together and try peacefully to work out disagreements and work together on issues to make the world a better and safer place. And that then sparked my interest in public service generally, and also diplomacy specifically. And a few years ago, I was given another incredible opportunity to return to the United Nations, where I had my first internship, that very place, and it looked exactly the same, I have to tell you. And I served as an ambassador, and I represented our nation at the Security Council. There were times when Secretary of State Clinton, our ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice, and I would be at a meeting, and I'd look around the table and see that the entire United States delegation was all women. That sent a pretty powerful message about the kind of country we are, a place where everyone can be given the opportunity to contribute and lead. In fact, one diplomat from another country once said to me, "Looking at your delegation, I see that we have a lot more work to do in our country." And of course, back when she was Britain's first female prime minister, Margaret Thatcher was often the only woman in the room. Like other women pioneers, she proved that women could do the job just as well or better than their male counterparts. And she, in turn, inspired people around the world, men, women, girls, and boys. We, of course, have a lot more work to do in our country and around the world to make sure every person is able to grow up in a world of security and peace, and also can realize their full potential. And each of you is going to be part of making that world a reality. Back when I was your age, I never imagined I'd be serving at the White House. And there's no telling where your talents will take you in your lives. Perhaps one of you will be sitting behind that big desk in the Oval Office or at number 10 Downing Street. But whatever your aspirations and whatever path you choose, I hope you remember this day and the lesson that no matter the walls and barriers that stand in your way, you can achieve anything you put your mind to. Thank you very much. And with that, I will turn it over to Chris, the executive chef, and she's going to talk a little bit about the dinner this evening.
A little shorter than her. Good afternoon, ladies, and again, thank you for coming in today. And my name is Chris Comerford. I am the White House executive chef. And like what Mrs. Obama said earlier, I am the first woman executive chef. And it's a really great ceiling that was broken. That was in 2005. And today I will be responsible for the state dinner. And like you ladies, I cannot wait until we serve that lemon pudding, because that will be served to you in a minute. But before we go there, let me talk to you about the menu for tonight. Our menu takes its inspiration from our kitchen garden. One of Mrs. Obama's great projects that she's done in the house is that little garden that we have in the South Lawn. It's about 900 square feet to begin with. Now it has grown about 1,700 square feet, and we've grown so much vegetables in there, and pretty much the things that we'll be serving at the dinner tonight takes its inspiration to what was growing out there. And even though it's wintertime in Washington, D.C., although it's been 70 degrees outside, we have been growing a lot of vegetables. The salad will be taken from the garden. The kale that will be served with the first course is also taken from the garden. So let me just run by you what we were serving tonight. The first course is a halibut that came from Alaska, and it will be served with a braised kale that we just picked yesterday, and we had like chefs out there that were digging the ground and pretty much like working diligently and very hard to make sure that what we have tonight will be fresh and it just came from the farm. It just came from the backyard, which is kind of cool. And then our second course is a kitchen garden salad. Very, very simple, just crisp lettuces. We have some spring varietals that came out, during the warm weeks that we had. So some of this will be incorporated to this menu tonight. And for our main course, what is like a great marriage of the two countries? We have like the bison Wellington. Wellington is, of course, a very traditional British fare, and we're giving it an American twist by using bison that came from North Dakota. So it's really a really, really cool marriage of the two countries. And we're, of course, serving that with French and wax beans that is kind of like, cooked together with some wonderful just herb butter. And, of course, for the finishing touch, our pastry chef, Bill Yassis, has made warm Meyer lemon pudding that is served with Idaho huckleberry sauce, and it's also served with Newton Pippin apples on the bottom. And it's believed that this Newton Pippin apples actually was grown in Queens, New York, and Queen Victoria loved it so much that during the time of Jefferson and Washington, they took the taxes off these apples because they were so good. So actually, you're going to be tasting these particular apples that I'm talking about. So in essence, like in a state dinner like tonight, we're not trying to cook British food, but what the Americans will do is that we'll give you the best of American hospitality by incorporating things that are indicative to England and then giving it a little American nod and an American twist. So it's a really good pairing of both countries, because politics divide men, but food really unites them. I mean, look at it tonight. I mean, all of you guys will just be sitting in a table across with each other and just really enjoying this wonderful meal. So I hope you enjoy our dessert. Are you ready, ladies? Okay, thank you very much.
So of course I don't know how to turn this on. This is on? Can you hear me? Okay. So I know this is dangerous, we're putting ourselves between you and your dessert. But we wanted a little bit of time here for you to ask any questions or make any comments that you might want to make. You can ask a question either to Chris or to me about the dinner, about the world, about your thoughts on things, and just raise your hand if you have something you want to share.
What's been the hardest thing you've had to cook for the president and his wife?
Yes, the hardest thing that I ever cooked for Mrs. Obama and the president is pretty much really nothing, because they are good lovers of food. They love a whole lot of things. There's a lot of varieties that we're able to cook for them. And the good thing with having a kitchen garden as well out there is that the real challenge is making sure that whatever grows out there is what's incorporated on the menu. So I have to be versatile enough and really very cognizant of what's growing and what's seasonal, so that way it could be incorporated to their daily meals.
Could I ask a question back to you?
Yeah.
Do you cook?
Sometimes.
What's the hardest thing you've ever cooked?
Risotto.
Yes. Risotto is pretty challenging, but of course you have to have the right, spoon that has that flat bottom, so you don't scorch the bottom and you just keep mixing it, adding on your stock. But it's really a cool thing that, you cook a lot. Do you cook with your parents? And
Yeah.
cool. What kind of risotto?
It was mushroom and cheese.
Oh, wonderful. That's my favorite as well.
Any other questions? Yes, right here. Here, why don't you wait for the microphone to come?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going. Then we'll go to you next.
What's been the hardest thing that you had to do in your life?
Ooh. The hardest thing I had to do in my life. That is a very tough question. I think probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with in my life. But you asked what the hardest thing to do, right?
The hardest thing you have done.
Have done. Okay. I think one of the hardest things I've done, because I'm a really private person, and so for me, when I was, say, your age, one of the kind of most agonizing things for me to have done would have been to be standing up here and giving a speech or, in the spotlight. And one day I realized that I needed to find my voice, and that if I just tried it and did it, and even if I didn't do so well, it was okay. And that if it just did it again and again and again, I would find my voice because I felt that I had something to say and something to contribute. But I think the first time I got up to do it and my knees were shaking and I was just, does anyone here have that same issue? I see heads nodding. The only way to get past that is just to do it, and you just have to force yourself to do it and just think, okay, it's going to be okay, even if it's not perfect. And then soon you'll realize you can do it. So now today, it's a much more comfortable thing for me. Are there things that are hard for you?
Not really.
Not really. Just wait. Okay. You had a question there?
Was your ambition to be... was it your ambition to become a great chef?
My ambition when I was growing up, I went to the University of the Philippines. I was a science geek. I loved the sciences, so I took food technology, but not thinking that sometimes when door opens certain way, you have to be very aware of it. I have the love for food, I have the love for science, but cooking is food and science. So in a way, it panned out that way. So I think growing up, you have to really listen to your parents, especially, because it was my father who really was trying to convince me to go to a culinary school growing up. But I was like, no, I want to be a scientist. I want to go to the University of the Philippines. But somehow it worked both for me because sciences and food pretty much are the same thing. So it was successful.
Thank you.
Right there.
Who is your inspiration and who has helped you get to where you are now?
Do you want to take that first? Or?
You could take it first.
Okay.
Think about mine.
My family has always been part of my inspiration and the closeness that I have with my family. In terms of my work life and my aspirations, certainly seeing people like Madeleine Albright, who came a generation or two before me and really carved a path for herself. It's probably some of the women leaders who do well. And then I guess one other inspiration for me is Michelle Obama and the way that she has carried out her role as First Lady, and this is an example of it. Taking an opportunity to share what the tables look like and the food that's going to be served, but then opening it up and bringing young women like you here to share in it. Over to you, Chris.
She took my answer, but I'm going to say it anyway. My inspiration growing up is my mom. I came from a family of 11 kids, so between breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's like a banquet going on in our house every time. There's always a smell of food, there's always a taste of food, and there's always that sound of food. So I really grew up with food around me. And then, of course, it's really young women like you, because when I see you, I see myself when I was that age. I wish I'm like that age again, because just having just that drive and just that, fascination with the world that, when I grow up, I want to be just like, look at some women that could really inspire you and have all of this leadership and these skills, like Miss Anderson here. I would love to be in her shoes, but this is her thing. So look at your path, look at what your talent is, look what is given you, and then use it wisely.
And what's your favorite dish?
That's always the hardest question to a chef, is what your favorite dish is, because, every time we come to somebody's house and they know that you're a chef, everybody is just too scared to cook for you. So most of the time, I'm not even invited in people's home. So, I just love something really simple, a pasta dish, carbonara, just simple tomato sauce, really something homey, something that really reminds me of just something that I could hold in my hand in a warm bowl and, just watching TV while, I'm eating. So nothing too spectacular, but something just really good and simple. How about you? What's your favorite dish? Okay, maybe you will like the dish that we're going to be serving on after this.
I was wondering what your favorite experience was when you were interning at the United Nations?
I think it was going into the General Assembly one day and just looking out, and I was just sort of sitting on the sidelines as an observer, but looking and seeing all the countries from around the world represented there and talking instead of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
After you got out of college, did you move your way up through the United Nations, or did you go straight to the White House, or what was your course of action?
When I got out of college, I had very itchy feet. I wanted to travel. And so I'd done my internship at the United Nations, and then I went and lived in Japan for 2 years, and I worked there. And then I realized that everything I was interested in was in Washington, so I came to Washington, and I didn't know anyone, and I didn't have a job, and it took a long time to get a job, but I just kept trying, and then I got basically a job. I had a college degree, and I got a job filing. And I did that to make money until I was able to get a job that I wanted, or that I was more interested in, working on Capitol Hill. And then I went to the Department of Energy, and then the first time I was in the White House, and then it went from there. What are you thinking that you want to do?
I'd like to major in finance and then move into OMB to work on the initial budget. That's what I want to do, but I don't know if it's going to work because I don't know how to get into it.
Well, you should give me your name and number, and I will get you to talk to someone at OMB. Not that I can get you a job, but I think it would be good for you to talk to someone who actually works there, just to get a little bit of information about that, and that's a great aspiration.
Thank you.
This is for either of you, but when you were growing up and like our age, do you remember if there was somebody who was like a really inspirational figure for you or a role model or anything?
I'll take that one first. I had a few teachers that to this day, even from like the 5th grade through high school, that I still do remember, because there are certain things that they've told me that still resonates, just, like any kind of success, it requires hard work. So just certain things that, growing up, even as a young high school kid, you just have to be really aware of these people that will take you up and not take you down. So go for the positive role models, teachers that would have something good to say and would have a good advice for you. So always listen to them, because most of the time they really have the best wisdom.
For me, when I was your age, it was Amelia Earhart. I thought what she did was bold and gutsy, and I was in awe. Right here. Oh, you have to wait for the microphone. I'm so sorry. Okay.
What advice would you give to young girls trying to pursue a job like yours?
What I would advise is, one, that you study very hard in school, which it seems like you're probably already doing if you got chosen to come here. And then seek out and try and meet people who work in this field already and talk to them about how they did it. There's no one path to getting into either the kind of job that I have or jobs like the people I work with. And I think if you can do an internship, that's one way to get experience working in a position that is like the kind of job you might want to have once you graduate. And definitely go to college. Are there more questions? Yeah, right there.
What's your favorite thing about working in the White House?
I think it's the ability to work on big, complex problems and try to resolve them. And for example, one of the things I have been directly working on is Sudan, and trying to help bring peace to a region that's been at war for a long time. I also think that, I don't know if you all got the feeling of this just when you walked in here today, but I have to say, it never gets old. Every day I walk in and I look at the building and I think of the history and I think of the people who've been here, and I get a bit of a tingle. It's exciting.
I will answer that question as well. For me, just look at behind me, the painting right here is President Lincoln. So just the walls, just everybody that's been here in the state dining room where you're sitting at. I mean, we had a Queens here. We had like different heads of state that's been here, all historical figures, all important people. So, you should really think of that if an important person was here way back. I mean, look at you right now. You were chosen to be here. So that doesn't diminish your importance at all. That means in the future, people could see that you have that much potential and potential to grow. So don't take that lightly, because you were chosen here, to be here, to move to the next level, to move to a leadership position, to achieve more things. So again, I mean, like for me, just coming in here, it never grows old. Every time I look at the walls, just the people who's been here, the history that was made here, it's just such a great honor to be working here.
We have time for one more question, and then you're going to be able to try the dessert.
Could you give us the recipe for your dessert?
But of course, once the state dinner is over, we will ask our pastry chef, Billy Assis, to post the recipe at our whitehouse.gov, so anybody who would be interested, it will be there.
Well, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed the discussion, and I hope that you very much enjoy the dessert. You're getting the freshest version of it. Chris.
Thank you again, ladies, and welcome to the White House, and enjoy your dessert.